Good evening. It is now 6:03 p.m. and I'm calling this session to order. Study sessions are limited to the commission discussion. No public comment is taken. No action or vote will be taken this evening. The study session serves as an opportunity for the commission to dialogue and provide feedback on a proposed item prior to a public hearing. First up on the agenda is DR 23-136. If staff or the consultant would please come forward for the presentation.
Hello, good evening, Commission. The case I have for discussion tonight is for DR 23-136 for Bottled Blonde. My name is Kristen Devine. I am a planner with the town. The site is located southeast of Gilbert and Vaughan, where Burgie's Coffee House was previously located. The applicant is proposing to develop a new full-service bar and restaurant. The input I'm seeking tonight is going to be on elevations and just any general feedback that you would like to contribute. Right, the site is approximately 0.19 acres and is zoned Heritage Village Center. The proposed development is 2 stories and 11,131 square feet. The building is placed 10 feet from the property line, which provides room for a switchback ramp leading to the front door and allows room for queuing on site for the business to be provided, and so that it doesn't encroach onto the sidewalk and off of Gilbert Road. Landscaping for the site is minimal. The applicant is proposing a street-side landscape planter with red yucca along the switchback ramp, which also includes a bench for patrons to sit on facing Gilbert Road. There is also 1 red pistache street tree that is required for the site. The applicant is proposing a 42-foot, 8-inch, 2-story building for a full-service restaurant and bar tenant, Bottled Blonde. The first floor is 6,742 square feet and includes the main kitchen, restrooms, bar, and dining area. The second floor is 4,388 square feet and contains a second dining room and bar area. The second floor functions primarily as a patio and includes a retractable roof and windows that create an open environment towards Gilbert Road. The building is primarily made up of colored block in Papago Red, Southwest Gold, and Highlands. The block will be accented with corrugated and decorative metals, as well as metal canopy features. The front of the building will include a metal tower entry feature at the northwest corner with a decorative section of precast concrete with bottles that is towards the middle of the tower. The first floor of the building is required to have 75% transparency per the Heritage District design guidelines, which the applicant is meeting. They are also placing windows starting at booth height to satisfy some of the resident concerns we've heard about the interior of the business being too visible from Gilbert Road. The applicant has also called out potential locations for murals on the south side of the building facing Joe's Barbecue, and also a potential location on the north side of the building. And then seen here are some renderings for the building. There are some color discrepancies between the 3D versions here and then the 2D versions that we just saw. So we have asked for some clarification on which color scheme is more accurate. And then seen here is a more close-up of the colors and materials that are being proposed. All right, and these are the floor plans showing the first floor dining area and then the second floor being the patio space. And for this project, we did request a neighborhood meeting to be held. This was held on September 12th. According to the sign-in sheets, we had 19 attendees that were noted. A variety of concerns that we have heard since the project has come in include use, the loss of the current building on the site, and the transparency from Gilbert Road. And then I did just want to make a note that the use is considered a full-service restaurant and bar, which is permitted by right within the Heritage Village Center, which is why this is a design review and not a rezoning or anything else. Right. And then again, I'm hoping for feedback from you tonight on the elevations and any other general feedback that you would like to provide. And I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Kristen, for the presentation. As this is a study session, it does not require a vote. However, this is time for the commissioners to provide feedback and ask questions of staff and the consultant. Would anyone like to start?
Got some comments.
Commissioner Baugh?
I cannot.
There you go. When I was reading the staff report, I noticed this comment here about the precast separated by a strip of precast inset bottles, which I think I might have an idea. Is there an image, or can you kind of show that a little bit better?
So Chair Kendall, Commissioner Baugh, you can kind of see it in the bottom right picture. It's that silver strip
Above the
separating
entry?
of the tower feature, yeah, on the entryway. So it's right above the walkway, right above the ramp, the silver strip.
And
That's the closest picture I have right now, I'm
Are
sorry.
these mason jar bottles? Are these beer bottles? What describe to me what that's like?
I don't have an answer for that, but I believe my applicant is here today if he wants to elaborate. Wine bottles, he says.
It's mud cast in this wall, so that it's like old school kind of wall, the ends of the bottles facing out, and then they're stacked in this mud cast.
Okay. I was trying to understand, and I think I know the answer, but I presume that the glazing on the bottom floor is able to be opened up to the street? Or it's not just solid windows, essentially, those windows can be opened up on cooler optimal weather days?
They can, yes.
And which kind of leads to my next question is, are there any, within the Heritage HVC area, are there any hour restrictions of operation?
Chair Kendall, Commissioner Baugh, there are not.
And is there any time of use related to when those windows would be open within the zoning code?
Within the zoning code, no, we don't have anything that restricts when the windows can be open. We have a noise ordinance that they would need to follow per the Muni code, but that's more complaint-based. We can be as proactive as possible,
Sure.
but
And so as I was looking at the, first of all, I think I appreciate that the scope of this review is really related to the design and less about the use. But as I think through the design, there's some things that come to my mind. What's the experience along the street? And what's the sort of experience in the broader Heritage District? And this is a very different Heritage District than 10 years ago or 15 or 20 years ago. So the intensity of the use, in my mind, seems compatible. I think through what do we do in the design to ensure compatibility longer term. I love the ability to open those windows up when there's great weather and create more of a pedestrian experience and engage the street. I just wonder if there's something to be said about those windows closing at certain times of the evening when noise can travel, and there's probably greater sensitivities in the later hours and during other times of the day. And the same thoughts come to my mind with regard to the rooftop opening as well, which I think is the right way to utilize that space up there, to have a retractable roof. I think that's what I read in the report. I don't know if you covered that much in your presentation. But is it, describe how that retracts and opens.
sure. So this is, I included a couple of images just in case this question came up. This came from the cut sheets that the applicant provided for us. So over on the left, you see the roof. The top is kind of when that style roof is closed, and then the bottom is what it looks like when it's open. And then the windows are also kind of an accordion style window, which is seen on the bottom right. So they don't roll up like garage doors. Instead, they fold in on top of each other.
Yeah, so I was wondering if they were louvers, but it's more like an accordion roof.
Yes.
And any idea about the material type?
No.
It'd be helpful to have the applicant share a little bit about it, because I'm kind of interested in how that contributes to noise baffling and ensuring long-term compatibility. That's what I was thinking, it's like a sunshade kind of a thing.
They could introduce it 'cause Chair Kendall, Commissioner Baugh, for your record, Lindsay Shuby with the law firm of Damage and Burnham, here on behalf of the applicant. I am not the architect, so I'm going to do the best I can, but what I just heard from Vince, our architect, is, we're not exactly sure what material it is going to be yet. So we will be prepared, Commissioner Baugh, to answer that question. We're still working on different materials. Obviously, we are very cognizant. We have heard comments about noise. And so any type of noise buffering is exceptionally important to us.
Thank you. The only other question, I don't know if I need an answer today, but as I was looking at the design, what is the sort of finished floor of the interior versus the finished floor of the sidewalk? And you don't need to give me that answer today, but what I'm getting is I think the accommodation made by the applicant was to raise the window glazing to above the booth level, or at the booth level, right?
Yes.
And so I'm just thinking to myself, if the interior is, significantly higher than the exterior, I'm not sure how much that aids us, but yeah.
Let me take it.
I don't have an answer to that. Do you?
Yes, Chair Kendall, Commissioner Baugh, it's approximately 18 inches of grade, and then we do have those planters as a buffer and the windows above that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Baugh. Any other commissioners?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So if you want to pull up the elevation, I guess this one will work to start, and then we can go to the ones showing the north and the south side. Right now, between Prep and Pastry, there's zero setback. There's not going to be any art or anything on the north side, correct?
No. So Chair Kendall, Commissioner Bigelow, they have a section marked out here on the north elevation, the dashed outline on there. It's a potential mural location. But on the south elevation, the bottom underneath the windows is where they're anticipating putting a mural.
And this is just kind of a more forward-thinking question. If Joe Johnson decides that he does want to sell or build there, and he goes on the lot line and goes vertical, is that, just thinking ahead, like, is that going to cause an issue or anything at all with the windows that they're using here? At that point, it'll just only be windows, an opening towards Gilbert Road.
It's something that we've brought up to them already, that there is the potential that Joe could come and build on the lot line, and then
It's gone.
yes.
Okay.
I know that they've been working with our building and our fire department on the concept of these windows, so I'm not sure where the status of that stands.
Well, I'll leave that to them because I'm not smart enough to figure that part out, so, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baugh. Commissioner Clausen?
Yeah, my comments are the same as Commissioner Bigelow's regarding the south elevation. I would have concern over those windows for just the long-term future of this project. The windows going out to nowhere. I think that's my big concern for now. Thanks.
Vice Chair Updike.
So would the south windows be operable as well, or just the windows that face Gilbert Road?
No, I believe they're all operable.
They're all operable. Okay. And then I know you already mentioned the differences between some of the computer rendered elevations and some of the other ones that look like they almost look like a picture from a different location. The landscaping is throwing me a little bit, so there's only a requirement to add one tree. Did I understand that?
Yes.
Previously? Okay. Are some of those trees that are along what would be their south side existing on the adjacent parcel, or?
I don't know. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Chair, Vice Chair, Lindsay Shuby again. Those are existing. So
Those are
we actually
existing.
did take an aerial and show existing trees, and we will have a materials board for you at the next hearing.
Okay.
The discrepancy between the 2D and the elevation is just computer rendering, but we will have materials for you at the next.
Okay, and so they're on the adjacent, those trees are on the adjacent property. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, Vice
Okay.
Chair, they're on the adjacent property.
Okay, and so at that height, with that, scale of the building, that would help with sound dampening to an extent, right, and I'm not an engineer that specializes in that, but is there acoustic requirements with the Heritage District, to meet some sort of standard, or to have some sort of engineer validate that to help with the noise complaints from citizens?
It would just be whatever the municipal code permits.
Okay.
We have asked for a speaker plan, and also a security plan, but I don't have that information at this time.
Okay, and that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Updike. I too have concerns over the windows that face to the south and whatever the future holds for the property next door. Obviously, at this point, it's not going anywhere, nor have I heard any plans of it changing, but I think it's always a consideration. When it comes to, I know that we're very proud of the trash containers and those types of things. Have we discussed any of those needs and what role this would play into that?
So Chair Kendall, they're going to be using the community compactors. As I'm not sure that I understand your question. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure I understand my question either. I think we should move to the next item.
Okay.
Unless there's any other questions from commissioners?
I do think it is a great-looking building, and I think of all buildings to be going lot line to lot line right next to Prep and Pastry, and, right where it's at is a great spot, and it'll be a great addition to the district. So, yeah, I do like it.
Could we extend an invitation to them to provide some resources for us when they come back for the next hearing, which would be the type of material on top of the enclosure on the roof, how that operates? I guess I'd like just more of an idea on the frequency of how often that might be open and when that might be open. I don't know if I cared so much about the stipulations, but just more of just the general operation of those architectural functions.
I think signage would be good to add in there as well. Just materials, types, overall design.
So they have some general locations of where the signage can go, but we don't include signage as part of the design review package. If you wanted to see conceptual signage, we could ask for it. It's just not part of the design review.
Just location would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
And then just to clarify, you had a lot of items that you kind of wanted addressed before the next hearing. Did you want this to come back for another study session to discuss those items, or just the next time I see you on this will be public hearing?
I think we could probably move it to public hearing and just
Okay.
move it along.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further comments, we'll move on to the next item. The next item is GP 22-16. I believe we have one member of the commission who wishes to abstain from this item and the next. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. Commissioner Baugh will be abstaining from this item.
Thank you very much. Kristen, you may begin when you are ready.
Tonight is my show, in case you haven't noticed. All right, so the next case I have for you is going to be for the lumberyard. This site is located west of the Heritage District, northeast of Neely and Cullenber. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to develop a multifamily community. And I'm bringing this case before you tonight because the property is located within 1,000 feet of the Heritage District, and we would like your feedback on the project. We're specifically looking for feedback on the proposed general plan amendment and rezoning, as well as the proposed deviations that are being requested by the applicant. All right, the site is approximately 8.5 acres, and it is currently classified as industrial. The applicant is proposing a general plan amendment to change the site from industrial to residential, 25 to 50 dwelling units per acre. The applicant is requesting a rezoning of the 8.5 acres from general industrial to multifamily high. Right. The site is located within the long-range planning area within the Heritage District redevelopment plan. In that plan, the preferred land use at the lumberyard site is multifamily, parks, retention, and transit. The proposed lumberyard development does fall within that land use and will be beneficial to the Heritage District by providing a density of housing within and around the Heritage District, which promotes an 18-hour downtown, increases the ability to attract retail users, and generally supports the vitality of the district, creating a more sustainable and self-supporting downtown. The site has a proposed density of 35.3 dwelling units per acre with a total of 300 units. The units will be located within 3 separate buildings. One building will face Neely Street and will be 3 stories tall. Another building will be placed at the rear of the site and be 4 stories tall. The final building placed in the center of the site is the largest and will also be 4 stories tall. There are 2 access points to the site, both off of Neely. Parking is found throughout the site, but most importantly, it is located along the northern and southern property lines, providing an additional buffer from the adjacent industrial zoning districts. Currently, the site is shown as being underparked, and we are working with the applicant to remedy that. Then seen here are some conceptual renderings that the applicant has shared with us. These renderings are not part of the review this evening, they're just supplemental. All right, and with the rezoning, the applicant is requesting a PAD with 2 deviations. The first deviation is for a parking reduction. Per the Land Development Code, a PAD is not an eligible avenue to request parking deviations, and we've requested that the applicant remove that request from any future document submittals. The second deviation that the applicant is requesting is for a reduction in open space. The open space requirement is 40%, and the applicant is currently requesting 36%. The reasoning behind the request is that they are offering private open space and that the town is also building a 10-acre retention basin just north of the site that the residents of the lumberyard could potentially utilize. Private and common open spaces are 2 separate requirements in the Land Development Code, though. They shouldn't be borrowed from each other, and each needs to be met individually. So we're not generally supportive of the reduction in open space. Multiple neighborhood meetings for this site have been held over the past year. Questions and concerns regarding the project have included density, proximity to the neighboring industrial, traffic, parking, things of that nature. All right, and then I'm hoping for feedback tonight on the proposed general plan amendment and rezoning, as well as the proposed deviations. And I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Kristen. Would any of the commissioners like to start? Vice Chair Updike.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Couple questions.
Do my best.
The concept of open space, would that be applicable if you were to introduce rooftop, like green roofs and living?
Yep, so Chair
Accessible
Kendall, Vice
spaces
Chair
on the roof.
Updike, yes, rooftop amenities, gardens, things of that nature, they would be considered open space.
Okay. And then what are the heights? Was that in the elevation for the 4th floor? The 2 4-story structures? What were those heights?
I don't have it in front of me, I'm so sorry. I just know that it's 4 stories.
That's fine. I just didn't want to throw out a suggestion if they were already at that 55 max and now the next time it's the question of, well, can we go higher because you asked for rooftops? So I'm just trying to understand all the information. Okay. I think that's all my questions for now.
Thank you, Vice Chair Updike. Commissioner Baugh, Commissioner Clausen.
I really don't have any questions. I mean, we need more people living and participating in the Heritage District, so I think this will be a great addition to it. As far as the 4%, of open space that they're asking for the deviation, I don't know. They have a pool, they have some grassy areas. There is going to be that big field. That's not really a huge concern of mine, but that's probably something that, the town is, we'll leave that up to you guys. But for us, I think for what it is, they're trying to maximize the space, and I think they did a good job. I'm glad the building off Neely is a 2-story and not a 3-story, and then they kind of staggered it, or 3-story and then pushed it back to the 4, but at least they started a little bit smaller. So, yep, I like it.
Thank you, Commissioner Bigelow.
Could you go back to the elevations?
Oh, I went the wrong way. There we go.
So really just a question, to meet the common area requirement, the landscaping requirement, could they also potentially add some landscaping out on the balconies that they provide? Would that meet requirement, or would it have to also be on the roof?
So Chair Kendall, Commissioner Clausen, I don't believe so because the balconies would be considered private open space, and they are two separate
Okay.
categories.
Yeah, I think they did a great job planning the site with the most density in the center of the site, with the 4 stories, scaling down to the 3. I do have concern, parking's a interesting topic of conversation, and the world is changing, but it looked like they were short, 40, 50 stalls, it looked like, something around there, so, but it sounds like they're addressing that. I think the elevations look really good, and I think the planning of the site is spot on. It'll be really an outstanding addition to the Heritage District, providing residents easily accessible residential product within walking distance of the district. So I think it's great. I don't have any other comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Clausen. I too have concerns over parking, and I believe the deviation, going back to the specifics, was somewhere around 40 vehicles. Is that correct? At this point, has staff
Way again.
or the applicant, what's the plan for that?
For the parking, so we haven't really dove into it a ton yet. I included it with my round of first review comments, but I was kind of waiting for the feedback from the commission here tonight before we really scheduled any follow-up calls or anything to discuss comments. I know that the parking is a concern. It cannot be included in the PAD. We do have alternative methods that might be coming up, but it's been generally spoken about that residential parking reductions are not going to be eligible for that avenue either. So the site just needs to be reworked.
And because if it was to move forward with where it's at, what would happen is cars would start parking along Neely and just start building up along that in the retention basin.
And that is a huge concern of the neighbors that have come out to the neighborhood meetings, is they don't want the parking to overflow onto Neely. They don't want the parking to overflow into their neighborhood, understandably so. So we're very adamant that the parking needs to be met on site, which does kind of bring back into the question, they're requesting the reduction in open space, and they have to add more parking, so we could be open to further discussions on being supportive of the open space reduction because of that, but the parking does need to be met on site.
How about a reduction of units?
That's a topic that we could discuss.
What's a retention space? Is that like a park?
The retention basin?
Yeah.
Sure. So it is a 10-acre retention basin that is going to be used for, I believe it's going to be grass. The design hasn't really been fully fleshed out yet, though. It's very new. It's used to store the stormwater in the area. But it's essentially going to be like a 10-acre parkish area.
And is this project, are they able to use the retention basin for their runoff, or do they have to do their own infrastructure underground for their water?
I don't have an answer to that.
Okay, just curious, because I know that is expensive, and if they were having to meet that requirement themselves, then that would give a little bit of leniency, but.
I know we require most projects to do their own retention on site, but within the Heritage District and kind of surrounding areas, there's a little bit of flexibility, so I'll have to look into that one.
Thank you, Commissioner Bigelow. Is there any other questions or comments?
Yeah,
Please.
So I am generally a stickler for certain rules, and so that 4% sounds small. And so to that point, then why can't we make it happen? Like, what's that rough square footage? 4% sounds like a small number, so what's that compute when you take the, how many acres?
Essentially, what's 4%?
Yeah, what's
8.5
4%?
acres?
I don't
Okay.
know, I'm sorry. I don't.
It's just a thought.
14,000 feet.
14,000?
Thank you.
14,810.
Very good.
Okay. Anyway, just my thoughts, thanks.
So my comment was, I actually like Vice Chair Updike's thought on potentially rooftop open space. It could be
Yeah.
a cool way to handle it. I think finding a way to be flexible on the open space so that they could get the unit count that they need to make the project financially feasible so that they can move this forward is the best move and path forward. Yeah, I guess my only other thought is if they've explored tuck under parking or something, if that became a real sticking point in maybe one of those back buildings, and then maybe it doesn't scale back to 3 stories. The back building goes up to 4. In the middle, you're 4. In the back, you're 4 with tuck under in the back. Just if you had to pick up some extra parking, but that would be my only comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Clausen. I agree. Is there any other comments or questions? Perfect. Kristen? It appears item 3, Z22-16, is also your item.
I
you'd
lumped
like
them
to walk us
together. I'm
through.
so sorry. I probably should have clarified that from the beginning.
Oh, we put them together.
I did. I'm so sorry. So I included the general plan and the zoning together. They typically run concurrently. So this is the zoning. They want to go from general industrial to multifamily high. And then the general plan amendment, they would like to go from industrial to residential 25 to 50 dwelling units per acre.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm so sorry.
Well, then the next item, if I'm reading this correctly, Z23-08. I believe we have 2 members of the commission who wish to abstain from this item. Staff, can you confirm?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. Commissioner Baugh will be abstaining and Commissioner Clausen.
Thank you. Hi, Ashley. We are ready for your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman and Commission members. Ashley McDonald with the Planning Department, here to present to you tonight Heritage North. As you mentioned, it's Z2308. The Commission may be familiar with this project. It's been in the works for a couple of years now. Located at the southwest corner of Juniper Avenue and Gilbert Road at the entry to the Heritage District. By way of background, the property is about 11.97 acres. The PAD was originally approved in January of 2022, so this does have the entitlements in order to move forward, but the applicant is requesting some changes. So this is a PAD amendment, just looking to amend that previous approval. There are accompanying applications that will follow. I didn't have materials to present to you tonight on those, but as future agenda items, we will talk with you about the design review amendment, as well as some updates to 2 use permits. Those were also approved in February of 2022, but those will be coming back before the Redevelopment Commission as well, along with this PAD amendment. The applicant is requesting specific amendments to that previous approval, specifically to Ordinance 2814. What they're seeking is to amend the development plan. When this project originally was approved, we contemplated it being built as part of a single phase. So all construction and buildings would be completed as part of a single phase. The applicant is looking to phase the development, break it into 2 separate pieces or two separate phases. And so that does require review and approval in order to do that, so that we can evaluate the previous conditions and ensure that everything that the town desires to be built as part of phase 1 is included. And then they're also seeking an amendment to one of the conditions that was approved as part of the original approval. It is important for me to mention that this does not open up all other aspects of the development for review. So if you recall, the original PAD included modifications to heights, and it included, some other deviations. So the applicant is not requesting any changes to those, and those approvals do remain in place. So just to orient you again to the site, since it's been some time that this has been in front of the commission, there are 9 total buildings proposed on the site. The applicant does intend to still comply with this development plan. It includes the development of the commons open space at the center of the site, Water Tower Way, previously known as the Paseo, improvements along the Western Power Line Trail, as well as off-site improvements. As part of Phase 1, the applicant is proposing to develop everything in green. I know this image might be a little bit hard to see, but what they're proposing to include as part of Phase 1 is the multifamily building as well as the associated garage that goes with that. Buildings 3, 5, 9, and 6 at the center of the site, those are retail or restaurant buildings. They're proposing to develop the commons open space, Water Tower Way, all associated off-site improvements, as well as development of some temporary surface parking. They are proposing to defer the south office building as well as the parking garage to the future phase. And so in order to meet the parking requirements of the rest of the development, they're proposing some temporary surface parking at the location of the parking garage. Staff is still evaluating that request and will need the submittal of the design review to ensure that there is sufficient parking within that surface parking lot, but we'll continue to work through that with the applicant. Part of the Phase 2 development, I wanted to note that the hotel is shown here as coming in as part of Phase 2. That may be constructed earlier depending on market and the ability to get a hotel on that location. So the hotel may come in Phase 1 or Phase 2, but the remainder of Phase 2 would be Building 4, which is right next to the parking garage, Building 7, which is the large office building, as well as the south garage. And then I mentioned earlier in the presentation as well that they're looking to modify a condition. There is a condition in the approval. I know there's a lot of words on the slide, and that goes against all PowerPoint rules, but I tried to underline in bold the specific language that's changing. But we have language in there that says they cannot charge, impose, or collect any fee, toll, or cost for the use of any parking space on the property. The applicant has come back to us and made a request that they be able to charge to reserve parking. So for the residents to be able to have a reserved parking space in that residential garage. And then they've also proposed that in the office building on the south or any of the tenants that they could reserve parking for their employees. And so staff is evaluating that request. But essentially what the applicant has proposed, and we will continue to work with the applicant on the language of this condition and what parking reservation staff could support. But they are proposing language similar to what's in blue, that in Phase 1, no more than 500 spaces may be reserved for guests of the hotel or multifamily residence, and that there shall be a minimum of 200 public parking spaces provided free of charge. And then upon completion of Phase 2, it shall have no more than 990 spaces reserved for office employees, hotel guests or multifamily residents, and 300 public parking spaces provided for free. Now, this is the language provided by the applicant, and staff, as I mentioned, is still reviewing and evaluating this language. So it will likely look different when it comes back to you for hearing, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that a request was coming forward related to reservation of parking spaces. So we're going to continue to revise that language so that we can get to a point that staff might be comfortable with it. But in terms of the PAD amendment, that will come back to the Redevelopment Commission probably in January. It then has to go to the Planning Commission for a recommendation, and then Town Council will make that final determination. As I mentioned early on in the presentation, you will again see the design review as we refine the phasing and the improvements associated with the different phasing options. The use permits will expire likely before the development is complete, and so you will see those again as well so that they don't expire. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about this PAD amendment.
Thank you, Ashley. Commissioner Bigelow, do you have any questions?
Sure, I'll start us off. So with the temporary parking, where the garage building 8 is going to be going, would they do asphalt, or would they just keep it as millings and just kind of keep it as it has been?
Commissioner, that is something that we would have to work through as part of the design review application. I'm not quite sure at this point what would satisfy the town. I imagine it won't be full, a full asphalt parking lot, but we may want to see more than just millings.
Okay, because that brings my next question. Do they have a rough time frame between when phase 1 finishes and when phase 2 will begin?
We do, and I should have had that pulled up. So one of the things that I didn't mention was that in October of this year, we took back the development agreement to Town Council for review and revision related to the development agreement, and it does set kind of a when construction needs to begin and when it should complete for those phases. But I don't have it pulled up. I don't know if anybody else knows that off the top of their head from staff, but there are dates set, and we can provide those too, certainly.
Perfect. Just because when it comes to stuff like temporary parking, it's a shame to put a ton of money into actually paying for the asphalt and the landscaping if within a year or two we're going to be going vertical. And if we do the asphalt, then it's kind of like at that point I could see it almost being prolonged before we actually do a parking garage. And where building 7 is, right now, if they do phase 1, they'll put a fence around that, and that area will remain dirt?
Chairman and Commissioner, that's correct. That is the plan, is that they would put up some temporary site fencing around that. One of the things that we've also been talking about is how they would treat that fencing, having something that's a little bit more enhanced than just a chain link fence, because you can see on the plan the yellow dashed line through the site is the Paseo, and so they intend to still develop the full water tower way through the site, and so we want to make sure that as people utilize that, they're not kind of walking between those two chain link fences and then along Gilbert Road having a more pleasing fence.
And is there any reason why the west side of Building 7 isn't just temporary parking as well, just until they do start phase 2? I believe, and we haven't seen the full design review package, but I believe that they're able to meet the required parking for the portions that they're building with that surface parking lot. One of the things that we're still working through with the applicant is what happens to the surface parking when they start to build that garage. And so we might see development of parking on that temporary site in order to ensure that they don't lose all of their on-site parking during the construction process. So we're still working through some of that with the applicant, but there might end up being parking on that. Okay, thank you. And just kind of addressing one of the questions you had about the reserve parking versus the public parking. It's expensive to build right now, and I think it's really easy to look at designs and, concepts and kind of say, oh, this is cool or this isn't. But in reality, like, it's really expensive. And so the reason I'm assuming they want to break it up into 2 phases is just so they can kind of spread out that cost and make it make sense. And so whatever we got to do to make sense to where those garages are built and there is enough parking, I'm in support of that. I don't know what % that would be to be reserved and to be public, but ultimately, if they're paying for it, then, I think it's good if that's what it's going to take to get the project to actually be built. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that feedback.
Thank you, Commissioner Bigelow. Vice Chair Updike?
So, in alignment with the parking conversation, those numbers that were proposed by the applicant for paid, reserved versus free, does that align with the parking study that they had done originally? Or
It does. Staff does have some questions about where these numbers came through, and we continue to kind of evaluate that while waiting for that design review submittal. In some conversations, we've heard that there may have been some changes to kind of the makeup of the multifamily, which affect parking ratios. And so at this time, we really just need some more information before I can definitively answer that.
okay, and I mean, I've had to pay for parking in my work environment for years, so I don't think that that's out of the ordinary. I know that's not something that we're like up for review for our scope, I don't believe, but I support it regardless. And then if you go back to the slide that talks about Phase 1, buildings 3, 6, 3, 5, 6, and 9, which one is building 9?
Building 9 is the very small kiosk at the center of the Commons open space. So
Okay.
it's just a small circle.
Okay, I see that now. Okay, and then you made a quick comment about the use permits, and I didn't take a detailed enough note to remind myself of what you said.
There were 2 use permits approved by Redevelopment Commission and Planning Commission as part of the original approval. One of them was for allowing a hotel in the HVC zoning district, and the second was for ground floor residential in HVC. So those approvals are only good for 3 years from the date of approval, and so they will likely expire before construction is completed on these. So they'll just be back through to kind of renew.
Okay, that's right. I don't have questions about that, but thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I think that's all of my questions.
Thank you, Vice Chair Updike. And thank you, Ashley. A few questions. I agree with Commissioner Bigelow in regards to shuffling the parking. I think it has to be done extremely carefully, especially if that's going to be fenced off. When the original project was created and the hotel was building 2, if I recall, there was some signage that was going to go on top. Is there any temporary signage that can be added for the announcement of the Heritage District?
Chair, that is a great question. One of the conditions that was placed as part of the original approval was that they also place pedestrian scale signage at that corner. And so that is still a requirement that will be required and as part of Phase 1 development. So we will work with the applicant on the location of that signage, but there is still planned to be pedestrian scale arrival signage at the Heritage District. And then when the hotel develops, we will likely still see that rooftop sign.
Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to that. When it comes to parking, who's policing the retail space for parking and keeping office people and multifamily residents out of that retail space and the surrounding retail spaces?
That would fall to the development or the property owners to manage that.
Can you elaborate on that?
They would have to police that parking. So if there are folks parking in the reserved parking, that would fall to their property management to handle that.
So if they're trying to charge $50 extra for a parking spot, what's stopping someone from saying, I'm not going to pay that $50. I'll just park in that retail space or on the street or across the street and walk?
Oh, are you meaning an employee?
An employee or a resident?
I don't have a good answer for that.
I think that's probably the biggest concern, as I see it.
Alex is our applicant, and he might have an answer for you if you'd like to.
Go ahead and push the button there. Perfect, thank you.
All right, Alex Hayes, 2525 East Arizona Biltmore Circle. On behalf of the applicant, parking, the reserved parking would be for residents of the multifamily, so it would kind of be built into their rent, or say employees, which is kind of deducted, or there are ways that it's managed through the employer. But all the public parking, that would be kind of a property manager thing, whether it's timed parking or just enforcing of parking by non-residents.
Okay.
So I think to to your point, if, the public parking, and in the study, they talked about the parking in downtown Gilbert, no overnight parking, this and that. Essentially, they could have certain levels of the parking garage that are for public and can't be there overnight. That could help enforce it. During the day, there's no really way to regulate it, in my opinion. The way I look at it is, right now, where Building 8's going to go, about 175 parking spaces there. If they're going to build this building and essentially give public access to 300, that's 2 floors of parking that they're giving us. So if there's not a way to compromise to make it make financial sense for them to build it, we're only going to get 173 parking spots for that size of land anyways. Anyways, that was probably a little bit more. There's just some random thoughts I had.
Well, Mike, we just heard an item, and I don't mean to mix the two, but less than a block away, they're 40 spots short.
Yeah. And so here, I don't know. I don't remember what the requirement is or how many they're going to be needing.
Or what's stopping someone from parking at Dairy Queen across the street?
Well, the commissioners, it's a good question, and the reality is that the parking that is going to be available to the public will be available for free, and it behooves the developer and each tenant on this site to make sure that it's a good experience for their customers. So there's going to be an incentive to make sure that there's adequate parking available free of cost for patrons of the site.
Okay.
Chairman, may I interject for a moment?
Absolutely.
I'm going to say that pretty much Dairy Queen's going to tow anybody that parks in Dairy Queen's lot that shouldn't be there. I don't think that any of those things are going to be of any substance at the end of the day. The end of the day, self-parking, what the compromise is to bring more public parking is more important than concerned if somebody parks in Dairy Queen's parking lot. I think we could find ourselves going down a rabbit hole and distracted by what ifs that quite frankly, I don't think Dairy Queen would put up with it. I don't think that Dutch Brothers would put up with it. I don't think the Circle K would put up with it. Any of those places around there, I don't think any of them would put up with it. So maybe we need to make sure people understand that they still have towing rights for their private property. But I just didn't want to derail what you guys are obviously focused on by something like that. Sorry to interject, but
No.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Councilmember Torgerson. Commissioner Bigelow, do you have any other comments?
Nope.
Vice Chair Updike? No. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, applicant.
Thank you, Chair.
With that, I will adjourn the study session. It is now 6:55. I'll call the regular meeting to order. If staff would please have our other commissioners come in, and then we'll take roll. Did that question make sense? Okay. They're just like nobody else ever considered that. Sure. Thank you. Would you please take roll?
Chair Kendall,
Here.
Vice Chair Updike,
Here.
Commissioner Baugh,
Here.
Commissioner Bigelow,
Here.
Commissioner Clausen.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters not on the agenda. The Commission's response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking a matter to be put on a future agenda. Are there any communications from citizens at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I have no requests from communications from citizens at this time.
Thank you. We now move into administrative item 5, Consider approval of minutes from the regular meeting held on November 15th, 2023. Are there any edits the commission wishes to make? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from November 15th, 2023?
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. If commissioners would please vote. Are we good?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. That motion passes 5-0.
Perfect. Now on to the public hearing. Items will be heard at one public hearing, at which time anyone wishing to comment on a public hearing item may do so. Comments will be heard from those in support of or in opposition of an item. In order to comment on a public item, you must fill out a public comment form indicating item number on which you wish to be heard. Once the hearing is closed, there will be no further public comment unless requested by a member of the commission. After the public hearing, the commission may act on all items not requiring additional staff, public, or commission comment with a single vote. I'll now open the public hearing for DR 23-101. Staff, can you confirm that there are two members of the commission that wish to recuse themselves from this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Clausen and Commissioner Bigelow have both requested to recuse themselves.
Thank you. This item has been requested to be continued to January. But at this time, in the public hearing, we will take any comments from the public at this time. Amanda, do we have any requests to speak?
Mr. Chairman, I have no request to speak on DR 23-101 at this time.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioners, any comment at this time? Thank you. I'll take a motion to continue DR 22-101 to January 2024. Do we vote?
Mr. Chairman, you'll still need a motion and a second.
Thank you.
I move to push the DR 23-101,
22.
22.
I second the motion.
Thanks.
We have a motion to approve DR 22-101 to January 2024 by Vice Chair Updike and a second by Commissioner Baugh. We'll now vote.
Mr. Chairman, that motion passes 3-0.
Perfect. I am now closing the public hearing. Our next agenda item is communications. I have no communications. Are there any updates from our council liaison?
Yes,
Councilman
thank you, sir.
Torgerson?
And I'm going to do this in my best Billy Mays to keep up the spirit that was put in the last council meeting. I want to wish all of you a wonderful holiday season, and if you haven't been to the Heritage District, I encourage you to make a stop in to see the holiday lighting and shop local. All holiday events are located on the town's website on the community calendar. Gilbert's Water Tower Plaza will be closed to the public in January of 2024 and will reopen fall 2024 with new enhancements. Please visit Gilbert's online community calendar again for the latest updates on Gilbert's events, as some of the regularly scheduled events that occur at Water Tower Plaza will now take place in alternative locations during construction. But wait, there's more. If you're looking for a free family event on New Year's Eve, Freestone Recreation will be hosting a Happy Noon Eves party. What, Happy Noon? Yeah, keep going. That's just not right. As the title of the event suggests, this is a daytime event with games, crafts, bingo, and a ball drop at noon. So it is midnight somewhere when that happens. And that is all that I have for you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Councilman Torgerson. I think you've got another career on them.
Did you use Chat GPT to write that?
Are there any reports from commissioners? No. Amanda, any reports from staff?
I don't have a report per se, but I just want to thank all of you for all of the work that you've done this year, and I've really enjoyed serving together with you. I hope you all have an exceptional holiday season, and I wanted to give a shout out to Elijah Elliott for coming and sitting through this meeting tonight and loaning me to the commission on vacation time, so thank you.
Great job, Elijah. You were very good. I think I speak for my fellow commissioners in thanking staff for all the support, and Councilman Torgerson for your support as well this year. We've accomplished a lot, and I'm looking forward to next year. So happy holidays, happy New Year, and it is now 7:03, and I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.